We have so many stories in our lives, but our stories are not always heard. On the Hear My True Story podcast, we tell our own true stories.
Before the white car parked, our head teacher had scattered. Looking at him, I could only see his tie that was flying backwards, waving at us, and he disappeared in thin air.
I want to share my life story. I want to share my voice with the people because I know that just a small joke I can tell through this podcast, it will make someone smile.
When you ask me what I fear most in life, I would definitely respond to you and say it's fear itself.
We are fighting for togetherness. We are fighting for equal rights. We are fighting to end injustice.
You don't have to be a storyteller or writer because, guess what? Life writes the best stories.
Hear my true story.
Ich habe meine Präsentation auf Deutsch gehalten. Das hat mich sehr beeindruckt. I did my entire presentation in German and that really 100% had a positive effect on me. It really impressed me. And I felt ready to finish my training. It gave me a huge boost, I'm telling you, my dear listeners. So, for anyone out there facing similar challenges, I understand your struggle perhaps. Language is crucial, that's true, but it shouldn't be the only barrier to pursuing your dreams. Policies should allow for the process of learning and improvement rather than pushing people out. Imagine if I had not got my C1 level certificate, I would be pushed out of school because that was the requirement and the school was willing to push me out. But policies should allow for the process of learning and improvement rather than pushing people out.
This is your favorite time of the week with your number one podcast.
Hear my true story.
Yeah, my dear listeners, welcome back again on this wonderful podcast. Hear my true story. Yes, it is me, your host, Otako, and I'm really happy to have you with us this wonderful week. Every time I sit in front of this microphone and I start talking to you, I feel stronger. Yeah, what a wonderful week we are having this wonderful day. It is a sunny day in the month of July 2024. It is summer, and for the first time, I don't have to think about school or language training. I am finally done with my training to be an educator in Germany. Let me share my personal story with you guys. It is a journey full of life, changing challenges and decisions. That's what I can say. Let me a bit rewind to 2019. I was in Germany working as a volunteer in a small city called Marburg. During my volunteer program, I was also creating theater shows, which was a passion of mine. It was also a part-time job for me. But coming from Uganda, where English is the official language, I had to adapt quickly to speaking German. You see, to survive and thrive as an artist in Germany, I needed to speak the language, the German language. So, in early 2020, just as I was getting myself integrating in Germany, the COVID-19 pandemic hit. Suddenly, all my theater projects were cancelled, and I found myself stuck in a small room wondering, what do I do next? I mean, this was a tough time for me. And it was also a tough time for many of us. And it forced me to rethink of my future. What do I want to do? To think of what am I going to do as a person. I realized that I needed a more stable career path. Something that would allow me to continue working with people, or to continue working with children, or maybe to continue working with young people. Of course, which I loved, working with people. That's when I decided to become an educator in Germany. But as you can imagine, this was not easy. In Germany, they call educators a Erzieher or Erzieherin. And to become one, I had to meet specific requirements, including language and certification. First, I needed to get my education documents recognized and translated into German standards. This was a complicated process, that's what I can say, but I managed to get it done. Next, I needed to improve my German to at least B2 level to start a vocational training. However, the school that I was applying to, it required a C1 level, which is quite advanced. This school is a state school, so that was the requirement. Depending on the policy, you need C1 to start a vocational training in that particular school. So, what did I do? I enrolled in intensive German classes, of course aiming to reach C1. At the same time, I began an internship to gain practical experience and get a recommendation for my school applications. At least a recommendation from the field that I want to study. So, by early 2021, I completed my internship and received my recognized educational documents. However, I still needed to pass the C1 German exam to officially start my training. So, balancing school, work, and intensive German language classes was incredibly challenging. I remember my first day in class struggling to understand and keep up with the lessons entirely in German. The teachers were speaking so quickly and the textbooks were huge and all in German. It felt like I was not fit to be there. It felt like I'm drowning. It felt like I'm misplaced. I was really not understanding everything. For instance, one of the teachers would say, okay, was bedeutet Lebensweltorientierung? What does life world orientation mean? And I was like, okay, I can't even understand that because it is said in a language that I don't understand. And I would sit there trying to figure out what the teacher is talking about. And then I go home and spend hours translating and studying. Wow. Anyway, despite my improving language skills, I needed the C1 level of German. I needed the certificate to continue my training. I attempted the C1 exam multiple times and I tell you, I failed. It was really heartbreaking. It was disheartening. The pressure from the school and the feeling of being different as a black person in a predominant white community added to the stress. My self-esteem took a hit and I even considered quitting the training. Literally, I said, Otako, why do you continue pressurizing yourself with the C1 certificate? Why don't you just quit? I can tell you, my dear listeners, I remember the countless hours spent studying and the moments of frustration when I could not understand something, and the feeling of isolation. However, my wife was a great support during this time. She would tell me, do shaft stars. You can do it. Do shaft stars. You can really do it. Her encouragement kept me going, Finally, after several attempts, I passed the C1 level of German exam. Receiving the certificate was a turning point. To tell you the truth, I gained back my confidence and I felt empowered. My language skills had improved significantly, and I was able to participate actively in class and communicate effectively at work. All along, I was just feeling isolated because of not having the certificate. But after getting my C1 level certificate, boom, my self-esteem was really up there. I was really having this empowerment to really speak and also actively participate. That confidence gave me the energy to continue with my training. For example, I remember this particular moment when we had a presentation in school. And I can really remember that. Ich habe meine Präsentation auf Deutsch gehalten. Das hat mich sehr beeindruckt. I did my entire presentation in German, and that really 100% had a positive effect on me. It really impressed me. And I felt ready to finish my training. It gave me a huge boost, I'm telling you, my dear listeners. So, for anyone out there facing similar challenges, I understand your struggle perhaps. Language is crucial, that's true, but it shouldn't be the only barrier to pursuing your dreams. Policies should allow for the process of learning and improvement rather than pushing people out. Imagine if I had not got my C1 level certificate, I would be pushed out of school because that was the requirement and the school was willing to push me out. But policies should allow for the process of learning and improvement rather than pushing people out.
Enjoying this episode? Leave a review now.
Hear my true story.
So, to dive a little bit deeper, let me just talk about the practical aspect of my journey. You see, my first step was to getting the Ugandan education documents recognized in German. The process itself is known as Anerkennung, which is a recognition. I had to send my documents to the German authorities, who then evaluated them and confirmed their equivalence to German standards. This step was crucial because without recognized documents, I could not even begin my training. So then, once my documents were recognized, the next step was improving my German. I joined an intensive language course, which was a tough one, but necessary. I remember one of my classmates in the intensive courses saying, wow, Deutsch ist keine leichte Sprache. Deutsch ist nicht einfach. Deutsch ist sehr schwierig. And I could not agree more, but I was determined, because German is not easy, but I was really determined. So during this time, I started an internship at a kindergarten in the area where I live. This was really good for me to gain some experience. It also gave me an overview of the kind of work that I want to do. It also improved my speaking skills of the German language. Having interaction with the children, having interaction with colleagues at work, speaking with parents, this really gave me a quick and easy opportunity to improve my German. I remember kids could come to me and say, Otako, kannst du mir das Buch vorlesen? Kannst du mir das machen? Bitte, Otako, ich will mit dir etwas spielen. And I needed to really improve my language. To be able to read the books for the kids, I needed to improve my language so that I can also enjoy reading the books with the children. I remember a moment when I read a book for the kids and the kids were bored. And then they said, Otako, wir wollen nicht mehr. And then, because I was not able to really have that engagement of reading the book in a language that I don't understand and also engaging the kids. But this was an opportunity for me to improve. After completing my internship, I applied to a vocation school for educators. The school accepted my application on the condition that I would pass the C1 level exams. This was my biggest challenge yet by then. I studied day and night, often feeling overwhelmed. There were times when I doubted myself. I remember sitting in the exam room, my heart racing, thinking, okay, Otako, what should I write? Was kann ich hier auf die Papier schreiben? Ich kann nicht alles auf Deutsch schreiben. Ich muss Übung machen. Ich muss jeden Tag wiederholen. And then I could think maybe I am going to fail again. Maybe I'm not going to make it. But perseverance paid off. I passed the C1 exam on my 6th attempt. My dear listeners, the relief that I got and the joy that I felt, I can't even describe it right now. With the C1 certificate in my hand, I could finally focus on my training without the fear of being kicked out. So, throughout this journey, there were many moments of doubt and frustration. That's what I can say. But there were also moments of happiness and joy. I learned that persistence and hard work, you can make it. If you persist, if you really continue pushing, you can really overcome the obstacles. And another thing that I realized was that it is really important to have support from people that love you, from people that you love, and from the community that you trust. I'm sure for those of you who are listening, who might be going through similar challenges, remember that every small step forward is a progress. You can really make it. Don't be discouraged by setbacks, Keep pushing, keep learning, and surround yourself with people who believe in you. Don't surround yourself with negative energy. When you surround yourself with negative energy, then you can't make it. So as I wrap up, I want to thank you, my dear listeners, for really listening and supporting Hear My True Story podcast. It is really inspiring. It's really giving me this energy to really always share my stories with you guys. I would like to say, for those who want to give some feedback, for those who enjoy these episodes, for those who would like to share with me their personal stories, or maybe send me a text and say, thank you for sharing your personal experiences with us, write me a text. Just go to the description of this episode and you'll find a text link where you can write me a text or send me a message. And then I can see how I can also respond to the person who has sent that. And by the way, there are some podcast listening apps that allow you to put comments. YouTube, you can also comment on this episode and say, wow, this was a wonderful episode. And by the way, for those who are listening for the first time, this is Hear My True Story podcast. We have so many episodes we have done. And for those who are also listening and have been supporting Hear My True Story podcast, please spread the word. Let the people know about this wonderful podcast, Hear My True Story. It is me, Otako, your host, and I would like to say bye for now. Take care, and by the way, stay inspired. Have a nice week.
We not only have voices for a podcast, but also faces for YouTube. Don't miss your next episode. Hear My True Story.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Music by Edwin Matovo, hosted and produced by Otako. Subscribe to our podcast for more stories and visit us on our website, hearmytruestory.com, for more stories. All the links are listed in the show notes of this podcast.